Welcome back to the Honda Build-Off presented by Continental Tire, where today the Type R is going up on the lift and it's not coming off until it's done. That's right, guys, it's time to put this car in the air and get to work on the suspension. And really my focus for this build, the rest of my budget is going to be spent on suspension mods, because when I do the math on trying to make more power with what is already a highly optimized engines, these B18C5s are really hard to make more power with. I'd be spending a lot of money, the rest of my budget, to try to make anywhere near the kind of power Pete's gonna make out of that K20. And even then, it's a 1.8 liter versus a 2 liter. It's not a fight I think I can win. So the strategy I'm gonna take is instead, I'm gonna try to beat him in the corners instead of the straightaways. So I'm gonna beat him with cornering speed and maybe better braking too. But mostly the focus is going to be on cornering speeds through the suspension. So that's where the focus on this build is going. Here's our pile of parts for the Type R, and as you can see, there's a lot of suspension goodies here, but you eagle-eye viewers will notice there's a manifold back there and a box that says Greddy on it, another one that says Koyo. So we are giving a little bit of love to other areas of the build, but before getting into all that, we are sponsored by Continental Tire. This series is, and this space is, and so we wanted to give you a quick rundown of our preferred tires from Continental, starting with their Extreme Contact DWSs, which we consider their highest performing all-season tire. If you're looking for a tire that you can run year-round that has exceptional wet and dry performance and it can also work really well in snow, then that's what we recommend. If you're looking for more of a pure summer tire, a high-performance summer tire, then obviously we are big fans of the Extreme Contact Sport, a tire that we run on a lot of the cars around here and we find to be outstanding both on the street and even on the racetrack. But if you want to up your game on the track a little bit more like we do with these two builds, then they've got their new Extreme Contact Force tire. This was built in collaboration with Hoosier and is a very sticky 200 tread wear tire that you can run on the street. It is DOT legal, but really is designed primarily for the racetrack, and that's what you're going to see on these two Hondas. And last but not least, we wanted to mention that Continental right now is running a promotion where you can get $100 off these Terrain Contact AT tires, which we run on my Tundra and on Pete's 4Runner. And you can also get $70 off of any of their other light truck and SUV tires. And of course, we'll put a link in the description to that below as well. So onward we go here, PT. Let's get wrenching on that Type R. Man, gotta say, PT, this car came apart way better than we could have hoped for a, what is this, a 24-year-old car. It is remarkable how little rust there is. We had a bit of a struggle with that one emergency brake cable, but other than that, this thing came apart so well. I'm blown away by the condition of this car for its age and for its mileage. So we're gonna go ahead and repeat this same process on the other side. We'll spare you guys the agony of having to watch that. And then we're gonna move on to replacing that steering rack, because if you saw the previous episode, you know it was binding up. So we've got a solution for that. So we just finished unbolting the steering rack here. It's just 2 bolts on this side and 2 on a bracket on that side.
And a bunch of power steering lines, disconnecting the column, but
yep.
It's a Honda, so it's not a terrible job.
It isn't, no, it really isn't.
Not for a front-wheel drive car, right?
No, and I'm hung up on something here.
Is this gonna work, DP?
Well,
it seems like we've got
a lot of, I think this, if we take this shifter link out, that'll do the trick. And I think in the manual it did say to disconnect the shifter links. We do have the factory service manual that Hanif donated with this car. And now you can see this end should just clear the subframe. And now we can come down this way. I hope.
Oh, now it's stuck over here.
The light, the magnetic light fell over on it. It's not the easiest thing to get in or out of here, that's for sure, but...
What they say, removing things is always the easy part.
Is
Putting
it?
a new one back in, 100%, because you just fiddled with it, you're yanking it out.
It's true, it's true. Anyway, we can see this is the OE rack, and from that part number, we do know it's the Type R rack. We did a whole bunch of research because I thought these were quicker ratio, but apparently 98 and later Integras all have the same rack. However, we're gonna test that theory. So this is the side of the car that got hit, and if you look dead in the hole there, you can see that the rack is off center in the housing, and we think that's because it took a hit and got bent. We're not sure because we've never rebuilt a rack before, but just based on our basic visual inspection, that being out of center in the housing doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And if it is bent, it might be engaging either too much or not enough with the pinion here, and that could be causing the binding and the clicking noise that we're hearing. And by the way, I did notice in my research that the pinion on the Type R racks is the differentiation point between it and the normal, non-quick racks. So I think this part is transferable over onto other Honda racks, and you would gain the quickness from the pinion. So it's not the actual toothed rack here that's different, it's just the pinion. All right guys, we figured while we have both of these racks on the bench here, we would do a quick bench test and confirm that they have the same number of turns. So it should be basically 3 turns lock to lock, and you'll also see how badly this one is still binding up. So I've got a little mark here so I can watch the pinion shaft rotate. So let's go all the way my way, Pete.
Oh my God. See,
it just bound right up. Yes, there it goes.
Oh,
yeah. Oh man, we're
yeah.
That's 1. That's 2. And that is just a hair under 3. So
and
that
I can see here, you can see this shaft right here.
Yeah.
It gets super close to touching.
Yes.
So yeah, this is for sure bent.
Yeah, it's binding up, I assume, on the pinion because it's bent. Follow that around. 1. There's 2. And there is 3, just a hair under 3. So it's the same, guys. 2.98 lock to lock, 2.9 lock to lock, and we can see that this does have a Honda part number stamped on it, but it's not the same number as this one. So I'm sure this is just a regular 98 plus Integra rack, but it's the exact same as the Type R one. Oh yeah, look at that, PT. Got 2-finger Cadillac style driving again. That is amazing. So yeah, that is a huge win, but it is a bit of a setback in terms of my budget. This did cost 450 Canadian dollars or 350 or actually 345 US dollars on my budget. So I'll have to get a little crafty about, how to get that money back somehow if I
just take
don't
the
want to go
penalty,
over.
man. You know what's going to happen. You're going to go over budget. You're going to get that second or 2 seconds tacked onto your time.
I'm starting to get that over budget vibe, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to try everything I can not to do it. So stick with us, guys, and see how far over budget I really go on this one.
So normally we'd be pressing out a ball joint on the press, but in this situation, Honda has designed this control arm with just the weirdest taper here and the rounded edges that you can't put a cup on here. to seat it properly to push this ball joint out. And the go-to method seems to be a socket and a hammer. And that's ghetto, but it seems to work. So let's see here.
Like a charm.
That's it, guys. Wow. So the reason we removed the ball joint is not because it was bad per se, but because we are going with a geometry correcting ball joint here from Hone Developments. And really, if you're lowering your car, you want to have this, especially on a track focused vehicle, because it does bring the arm back to a factory position, which puts the roll center back into a proper position. Oftentimes you lower a car and you can see the arms are like this, which creates all sorts of unwanted geometry issues like bump steer. Now this is a tool that a lot of you can rent from your local parts store. We did buy one because we do need one around here. You can also try to do this in the press, though. I do find this is the quickest and best way to do it. As you can see, this is just gonna pull this through.
Look at the skills here, everyone. I'm holding it and holding a camera.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not multitasking at all, it is.
Boot goes back on, and we just have to put this little ring back in, and we are done.
It is now time for a full hard race party because we are ready to put all the suspension back on the car, and we have turned to our friends at stage4motorsports.com to source everything hard race, like we always do. And if you're not familiar with hard race, they make all kinds of adjustable and replacement arms like this OE arm that has their hardened rubber bushing in it. And of course, the hardened rubber means you've got reduced deflection in all of your joints, and that means you're going to have more consistent camber curves, more consistent toe curves, all that kind of good stuff. And of course, this car having 270,000 kilometers on it, those OEM bushings would have been pretty worn out. So this is a great way to upgrade and not ruin your ride comfort in the process. We do find that the hardened rubber ones are really quite good for ride comfort versus, say, a poly bushing or a spherical bearing. Why? As you just saw, Pete bolted up everything in the rear here, except we haven't installed the brakes yet for reasons I'll explain in a moment. But as you saw, we put in the hard race lower arm, the camber arm, and the toe arm. And of course, that big bushing went in there as well. That trailing arm bushing is a big one on these trailing arm style Hondas because the OEM ones tear out and are just too compliant. So this really helps stabilize the rear suspension, keeps the wheel sort of where you want it. It doesn't want to move forward and backward as much as it does with the OEM bushing. And most confusingly to some of you guys will be this bracket that we put on the bottom of the knuckle. That is actually a roll center adjuster from Hone Developments. And the beauty of that is a lot of times people put roll center adjustment in the front of the car, but not in the back. And what happens is you end up with different roll rates across the front and rear axles because this geometry change actually affects how much the car wants to roll. Or in essence, it changes how stiff the spring is at the wheel. So by doing this front and rear, we now have corrected roll front and rear, and the car is going to roll in unison, if you want to call it that. You won't have the front rolling more than the rear, or the rear more than the left, more than the front. So this is actually, I think, a very important addition when you want to really dial in your roll centers. And here are our coilovers for the Type R. These are from Annex Suspension, a company out of the San Francisco area, and they make bespoke coilovers for a variety of vehicles, mostly classic Toyotas and Hondas, a lot of golden era Hondas like we're working on here now. And these are their Club Spec Pro coilovers. So this is their top of the line unit. As you can see, it comes with both a main spring from Swift and a helper spring here, which means you're not going to get any mainspring rattle when you go into full droop. But most importantly is when you order a set of coilovers from them, they will ask you to fill out a whole form explaining what all the mods are on your car so that they can help you choose the right spring rates. So every single one of their kits is bespoke for the customer's needs. And in fact, I put Grant, who's the engineer at Annex, in touch with the other Grant, who's the engineer at Hone Developments. And we all put our heads together because with these changes to suspension geometry, you really want to choose your spring rates accordingly. There's a lot of engineering that goes into these. In fact, I recommend go to Annex Suspension's website because they have an amazing website that breaks down all the technology they have in here. And I think it will really impress you just how deep these guys go. And they're both true enthusiasts, race car guys, and performance guys like you and I. So you're not, dealing with some offshore corporation that's just trying to make money. These guys want to make really high quality products to service their core audience. There is one last step that you want to do before you bolt these on, that is set your bump stop height. And that's for reasons that are explained very well in Annex's own video on it on their YouTube channel. So if you want to know why we're setting bump stop height and how to do that, I recommend just going to their channel and watching that video because it explains it much better than I can now. So without further ado, we'll bolt this up in here and set those bump stop heights, and then we'll reassemble them and do the same on the other three corners. We just finished bolting everything up to the rear end here, and as you can see, we've got the brakes on. Man, it would have been nice to refinish the calipers and stuff, but we are into crunch time and we just want to move ahead. I am reusing the rotors because they're relatively fresh, even though they look kind of rusty. There's lots of meat left on them. Same with the pads. Anif actually had a Hawk HPS pad in there, so I'm leaving that in there because they were nice and thick. And the last thing we're doing is installing this hard race 24 mil sway bar in the back end. And that is because of the spring rates that we chose with Honed and Annex. Of course, it's no big secret that putting a bigger rear sway bar on a front wheel drive Honda is going to help the car turn better. It's going to help it rotate by increasing roll stiffness. So this is not an unusual mod to be doing. And this 24 mil bar from Hard Race is nice in that you've got 2 points of adjustability, so you can tune it up a bit. As you can see, we've just wrapped things up in the front end here, and we did put on a new set of Brembo rotors, and I should really say new in quotes because these were in Hanif's stash of parts that came with this car, and you can see they've been sitting around a while because there's a little bit of rust on them, but they've never been used. So they are new Brembo blanks, which is a really affordable way to cycle through rotors on these cars. And he also had a set of used Hawk HP Plus brake pads.
It was like a decade old, man. Look at that box. Dude.
I know. And look at the discoloration in the ears of the pads here. Like they have seen some heat. So confirmation that Hanif was ripping some serious tech. So we'll see if these pads work or not. If they're cooked, then I'll have to go and spend a couple $100 and put a new set in. But this being a bit of a budget challenge, I figured let's see if we can make these work, because HB Pluses at our local track on a car this light should work pretty well. We'll have to bed them in on these rotors, obviously, but man, we have got a lot done here. I think this is a wrap on this episode, everybody, because I'm tuckered out. I know Pete's tuckered out, but look at this. I mean, it looks incredible. So
suspension overhaul complete.
It was a big job. Every bushing, every arm's been repainted. We gave it as much love as we could within the parameters of this build, and excited to get it aligned and then move on to the next phase of the build, which is going to be intake, header, exhaust, make that valve cover look as pretty as the rest of the car, and then it's really just a matter of showing PT who the boss is of Rippin' Tech. So stay tuned, everybody. You're going to see all that very soon, as well as lots more episodes on Pete's car as well.